And I think we're missing just one person.
Just Robin, yeah.
Robin, is Robin new? I don't think I know Robin.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's new. He said he comes from Onlylist, right?
Oh, okay, cool.
I just onboarded him. Yeah. So basically, I think he'll be able to. He can try to introduce himself, definitely. Yeah. So yeah, pleasure to see you guys again. This is again the Beerus community call. So we have quite a few interesting points to go over this week, and I think we have some very interesting things to go and work on a little bit later. We have a new member, Robin, that has today, which is very cool, and would be glad if you could like try to introduce yourself and just tell a little bit about yourself.
Of course. So my name is Robin. I work at Brumer, which is a young Web3 company that we started with a few friends about 6 months ago. And we know closely Paco and Gregor, who have co-founded OnlyDust. And after a bit of talking, they advised us to start working with them both on Zama AI and the Starknet environment, as we are quite fond of Web3. So we actually started talking with project owners today, and I've been quite amazed with the reactivity of the community, because like the same day I'm already in a community call to discover the ecosystem. So basically, Starknet is quite new to me. We have another lead developer, which is a bit more advanced than me on Web3 subjects and Rust. So we are looking forward to get up to speed and be able to work on every matter that you deem relevant and bring value to this project, and hopefully other Starknet projects as well. So looking forward to working with you guys.
Awesome. Happy to have you in the ecosystem.
Yeah, definitely. And I want to say that you're lucky because you've come to the cool guys club. I mean, there's Alejandro, Pierre, Ben. I'm not very cool, but all these guys there,
you look cool, yeah.
Top of the line. They're top of the line. So yeah. So just to say quickly a little bit about Beerus, and after we'll go over the points. Just so Beerus is the Starknet Lite client. I don't assume like the knowledge that you have about the Web3 ecosystem, but like a light client, there's different types of nodes, full node, archive node, and light node, which is quite a novel idea. There's not many light clients that are developed for now in the blockchain ecosystem, but there are a few like Helios or others that I could link to you that are built on other blockchains like Ethereum. So the goal of Beerus is to fix something which is firstly running a node. The cost of running a node is very high because running a node is very computationally intensive. You need like a very good computer, at least 16 gigabytes of RAM and a terabyte SSD for a full node, 3 terabytes for an archive node. And so we are building this system to be able to run on any type of device. So Beerus would be able to run on a phone, on a car, on a toaster, on your smart fridge, or even in the browser already right now, or on a rocket ship if you want. So this is the goal, to be able to bridge the real world and the Web3 space and enable all these IoT devices, and just also to become just a light node on the network. The bridging IoT is, I think, one of the most interesting things that we could do with Beerus. So that's Beerus in a nutshell.
It's very clear. Thank you.
Okay, so this week we have, firstly, I will post it again in the chat, but we have a few things that I have listed in the community call, in the community Telegram. So we can start talking about reviewing their RPC. I think that we are a few days ago I made a PR that enables us to visualize all the endpoints that we need, that we have, etc. So the total number of endpoints that we have in Beerus is 47. So we have 19 Ethereum endpoints, we have 20 StartNet endpoints, and I think we have 19 plus 20, we have 8 other endpoints that can be related to Ethereum or StartNet, but are more like Beerus specific. And we have implemented 45 already. So firstly, I really wanted to congratulate you guys because you did like an incredible work. It has been like pretty fast, especially before like such a big modification in the code base. Like it's, I think, like half or a third of the code base has been modified. So it was pretty big. And the RPC for a node is like essential. So it's very cool. Well done. There's still some work to do, especially considering that we found a few bugs. So 2 main things. The first things we need to finalize. There's 2 more PRs that are pending that are going to be finalized very soon, potentially today, tomorrow, at least in the next days. And then we will need to go towards proper error handling, which is not done yet. And the second thing is full testing. Because some PRs prior to the error handling that Ben has built, has implemented, so the Beerus API error, before that, there were already some endpoints that were implemented, so they don't have the correct error handling. So we will need to port these ones, and we will need to add proper testing. But I think this could be really easy PRs, considering it's more like understanding a little bit like how the RPC works and what the errors could be. I think maybe just 1 person or 2 people could like clean up all the endpoints and implement proper error handling. And after, for the testing, we'll go potentially 1 by 1, potentially not, because just because some people I know are a lot more familiar with testing, like like Damien. So yeah, if you have some ideas on that, feel free.
One thing on that is I really wanted to use the auto-generated client from the OpenRPC spec, but like, Paul, the types were coming out mangled until your PR on the specs. So I think what would be really nice is once your PR gets merged into the specs, and I'm going to try to push it internally, we set up an auto-generated client with those type bindings, and then basically make sure that via the OpenRPC spec, we've matched all the criteria for a client.
Okay, can you re-explain, like, can you explain exactly what the value of using this OpenRPC typings would be for Beerus?
Yeah. So like the benefit, one of the benefits of using OpenRPC is documentation. So you basically get documentation for free for all the endpoints. The other benefit, because, the same thing with documentation, it's going to explain all the parameters, all the input parameters and all the output parameters. It's going to give us free mocks. So basically we can say we adhere to this OpenRPC spec exactly or not. And we don't have to actually write any code to do it. We might have to write like a script in order to generate the actual client. The only problem is those types were coming out mangled until your PR. So that fixed that. The problem we'll have with that is we're actually going to fail a lot of those tests because we don't, like we do with the block ID. The way that we handle block ID right now is we pass a string called number or tag. We need to handle that via a struct that says block tag or block number. So that'll show us that we're out of spec, and basically we'll need to come back into spec once we have that.
It's a struct or it's just an enum at the moment for the block ID in Rust? It's not an enum
There's
at this
two
moment.
separate strings. Right now it says like you pass in the type of identifier and then you also pass in an identifier. So it's not even like what it's
Right.
expecting. So like block under number colon number, block under hash colon hash, right? That's how you determine the type. It's just all passed in as one field. So it's like, what is this? So I'm gonna have to pull the PR to update. So there's a couple of things on that. So the latest version of StarkNet RS does the serialization, deserialization for block ID. So that way we don't have to implement anything on Beerus. But they structured it to handle two different versions. So like it's an enum now instead of when you like call like a block ID, right? So like you have a V1 and a V2, and then also with like contract classes, you have like Legacy and Sierra now. So like you have to explicitly like declare it as a struct. So like it breaks a lot of stuff. And I noticed that when I was just updating it to like pass tests, that like a lot of our stuff is kind of formatted for legacy or V1. So like after we update it, we would have to go back in and update it to V2. Also like our tests were like legacy format too. Like for example, like for add declare, like doesn't take a compiled class hash right now. So you know, like
Hey,
those.
Alex, if you see those, do you mind spinning up issues for those? So we can track them?
Well, yeah, I was gonna wait until my PR was merged before I did that, but I mean,
Okay,
because yeah, so that way it's like separate as much as possible rather than like, you know, all in the same big PR. But yeah, no, definitely, I'll do that.
okay, cool.
But
And
the
the
PR is pretty stale and mangled right now. I'm gonna have to close it and reopen it because of all the changes. It's like Git is not happy, so I'll resubmit it today.
Yeah, I think well, I think in order we'll close I think we need to merge the PR from Pierre with the update of Helios and Ethers.
yes, I
Yeah.
think we should wait a bit because Helios is implementing a lot of fixes that will benefit for us about the data directory, the Coinbase, all of stuff. So perhaps what we can do is, without waiting Helios to release something, we can upgrade the version of Helios in the Cargo Tom just to be sure that we benefit all these modifications that are already merged in the branch.
Yeah,
Okay,
'cause
so
I
if we're-
tested. Oh, sorry. I was just
so
gonna
if we're-
say I
if-
tested my.
yeah.
I just tested the update RS with the Helios changes and everything was working fine. So there's nothing breaking.
Okay, so then if you want to wait on the Helios update, then if you don't mind, Alex, why don't you rebase and then we'll merge that first and then we'll wait on Helios. Does that sound good to everyone?
Yeah, it does.
Cool.
Can you
Yeah.
just explain me? I didn't really follow on the block ID. Like what is the why are we like doing so much work on the block ID, Alejandro?
Yeah, let me show you.
Yeah, it's all about how you express a block ID. Today, block ID means three things, Ben, right? Three things at the same time, as Alex said.
Exactly. You can keep going with that explanation while I find this if you want.
Because
Yeah,
block ID is like normally like tag, hash, or number, right? And
so like Alex said, you have three representation of the same thing. So today the problem is that we have explicitly to tell Beerus which form we want to use. And the idea is just being able to make dash block hash boom, giving the hash or stuff like this, just to be sure that we don't have ambiguity on the block ID. Is that a good sum up, Alex?
Yeah. like, it's like the way that that endpoint is defined in the ecosystem. So that way we're like following the RPC definitions. And it makes more sense. Like when I looked at it, I was like, oh yeah. So.
Oh yeah,
I'm not going to be able to find these right now.
In the chat, I put it in the chat. The matter implementation of.
You need the example.
Yeah, I was just going to show. Yeah, I was going to show the actual curl from the Postman collection. I might have it in a Postman
Okay.
collection.
It's in that issue.
It was okay. Let me find the issue. Here we go. Okay, so the way we currently handle it.
Yeah, the example part 1, part 2, part 3. Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is from the Hurl, right? So we're throwing in the parameters, we're throwing number, and then we have a function within each one of those methods that I think it's, it's a fairly long function that's like block ID to tag to something helper. And that converts it based on this thing, but that's completely a Beerus specific logic. And that's not how the community handles this parameter. So it works for Beerus. And then if you try to launch this curl should work on any RPC in this Darknet ecosystem.
Yeah.
So the way that we should be handling that is then this. So a block ID is essentially the struct, which in this case is a block number, but on the server side, we need to be able to deserialize it as either a block number, a block hash, or a block tag. And that way you'll be able to take that Hurl and basically just change the URL and hit any RPC in the Darknet ecosystem.
I see. But it's like the struct would be like block number 0 or block hash X or block tag latest, right? And so when we receive it on Beerus, for example, under RPC, what we're doing is that we see like, oh, it's a block number, we get the value and we parse it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Because for now we're doing like the way we're handling it is incorrect. Like we're doing some tinkering. I don't know how we call that in English, but it's weird. Yeah, definitely. We're using like multiple. There's like a block like this just to handle it.
Exactly. And once that's implemented, we can take away that code too. We can just delete it. Let me see if I can find it just so we can all be on the same page. Block ID string to block ID type. And so this should essentially be just block ID and the type should be block ID. Sorry, not that one. 132 should be block ID, type block ID, and then we can delete that.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. Yep. Yeah, I think it's a very important PR, and I think indeed, like just the Darknet ecosystem, like we're saying, like many people are saying. I've been with Pierre actually on the Basecamp cohort today, and what the host was saying is that we're building on the edge. So basically, Darknet is also like very exciting and very interesting because we're building like such edge tech, but the problem is also that everything is built under our feet, so everything's moving, the specs are moving, and it's not always very easy to build things. But I think it's very important to have some solid standards so the ecosystem can have a very sane base and everybody can have these same standards in their projects.
Yep, do agree on that.
I just want to say one more thing here. The beautiful thing about your PR, Paul, to Darknet specs is that this will be generated and code generated for every single person that wants to generate it. So this is from your gist that you added to your PR. So instead of that block ID that we saw that was just part of Pathfinder's code base, they could essentially go change that whenever they want to. Papyrus can change it whenever they want to. Starknet RS can change it whenever they want to. But the beautiful thing about this is that if this is the spec and you've literally code generated this type, then everyone will be using the same thing and talking about the same thing.
Yeah, I see. And how are people going to use this? So they are going to add this file in their code base, right? And so they are going to use these types that have been auto-generated from the JSON RPC specs, from the OpenRPC specs, and just add this file in the code base and then just use all these types, right?
Yeah, from what I understand, it's not explicitly, OpenRPC isn't explicitly made for the server side. It's, they tout themselves as being for client generation, document generation, and mock generation. But I would like to see these used on the server side, honestly, just so that everybody is talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
I think that the difficulty in implementation is going to be that we use JSON RPC, that parity tech library. And this doesn't necessarily have anything to do with JSON RPC, but we would essentially just wrap it. We would essentially just use it as the type system. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
But that's really interesting. And like OpenRPC, I'm seeing it like more and more, and like it's really interesting to see that they are doing a lot of things. Like you can do a lot of things with OpenRPC. Yeah.
The only thing that worries me is like OpenRPC is here. It seems like a lot of people are using it, but like this generator only has 46 stars on GitHub, and that type bindings has like 16 stars. So it's kind of surprising. Like, I guess I'd be a little worried to use something like that in production, but the code it outputs, your code that it outputted looked really good.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. That's pretty surprising, because when you look at even Ethereum is using OpenRPC.
but I think they're using it for documentation. I don't think they're using it for like a server side implementation.
Yeah. Yep. So let's see what so you see, like this is a little bit some things that I think people like you, Ben, and other engineers at Starknet that have more experience potentially like in the ecosystem, maybe these are decisions that Starkware should take, or Starknet should like propose, or I don't know, on the Starknet ecosystem or community, or I don't know, so we can try to discuss these things and find out. Because like if we go forward with this and start using Starknet these as the specs and OpenRPC on the back end and everywhere, and after we're like, oh, it doesn't work really well, we're fucked. Like it's gonna be complicated to come back,
Yeah, I mean, if you think about like if we merge your pull request, have some template for code generation, you can basically spin up the boilerplate of a JSON RPC server and client within a couple minutes. And now you're just talking about the details of the methods, which in our case is, the actual heart of the Beerus Lite client. But if JSON RPC is going to be the predominant interface that everything on Starknet uses to talk to itself, so it's going to be really helpful for people to come in and basically spin up a JSON RPC client or server in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really important.
I do agree. But do you know what other like blockchain that are like well established are using?
We use JSON RPC because Ethereum uses JSON RPC. I know some use gRPC, like I mentioned before. I think Tendermint and Cosmos use gRPC and protobufs. I haven't gone down the rabbit hole with a whole bunch of other protocols. Do you guys know?
No, mainly those ones. gRPC, protobuf, JSON RPC. No.
Yeah, I guess. But do you know, because you were saying that Ethereum was using like JSON RPC just as for documentation, but not on the back end. Do you know what?
No. OpenRPC. OpenRPC, it's for documentation.
RPC for documentation, but do you know like because you're saying that OpenRPC could be used like to create those types, and after we can use those types. But do you know what Ethereum does in the backend, or?
They use each of their clients, I believe, just implements let's see, I haven't looked at this in a while. So there's their open RPC generator. There's a nicer documentation site. But you'll see that these curls that they have here look exactly like ours. The JSON RPC spec part of it is the way that this JSON is laid out. So it has a JSON RPC version type, a method, and a params and an ID. So that's the JSON RPC spec. And then that open RPC part of it is for the documentation and mocking and making sure everyone's using the same types. Does that answer your question? But that's why this looks exactly like ours, is because we're using JSON RPC as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think it does. I'm understanding more. Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good choice, and it seems pretty like what it builds, like even just being able to generate the types is really cool. So I think using this could really speed up a lot of things and could enable people to build some things that are really stable. Yep. Very good. Very good. Very cool. Thanks. Okay, so the second thing is just like the full text coverage for the RPC. We've discussed it a little bit. I think during this week we'll start opening, just as soon as we close the migration, we'll start opening issues for tests and start implementing tests for all the endpoints. And with Alejandro and Pierre, we've talked about also something. I don't know if we could consider these as tests, but I guess they can be. It would be to build like a CI with the Hurl, with all the Hurl files. And so each time we build, or I don't know, maybe Pierre or Alejandro could talk a little bit more about it, but we will just go through all the Hurl files and just hit Beerus with all the Hurl files to make sure that the Beerus is returning the correct information that we're waiting for.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like what me and Pierre were talking about was using some way of like creating a temporary like Beerus instance using Docker, like you create a Docker image with all the commands put in there, and then test all the Hurl files, and then if a Hurl file depends on a result of another Hurl file, then like a block, then we can pass it that information. And Hurl actually has a test suite too, so you can figure out if there's like a just off of a 200 okay, or if like there's a response that you're expecting, then you could use it to make sure that all of the endpoints are working. But I'm not familiar with you running that through GitHub Actions. I'm more like I've used Jenkins and stuff, so in Kubernetes, so I don't know how that would work with GitHub Actions. But if it's just CI through GitHub, I don't see why it can't be done.
No, definitely. I think that's a great idea, because in one shot we can try to build an image for Beerus first time, just to be sure that it can be very deployed easily anywhere, and then using, as you said, Alex, the image to make some testings, and just at the end we shrink the tests just to be sure the image of Beerus stay very small. So that can be great, and with CI it's just a matter of how to use the environments, etc., and then it can be done, I think, pretty nicely.
GitHub Actions has a really good integration with Docker, so you can pull those images fairly easily. And then if you're familiar with really any of those other CI platforms like Jenkins, there's run functionality. So you basically run, if you're working on like a Linux machine or an Ubuntu latest image, you just basically run whatever you need to run. But yeah,
that can be a nice. Sorry.
No, that's it.
That can be a good thing you can tackle, Alex, because I already made CI in GitHub and you in others, but also in Docker. So perhaps it can be an issue with several people just working together just to go faster and doing something nice. And Robin, if you know and if you want to participate, but that can be a great issue.
Yeah, sure. I use GitHub Actions and Docker quite a lot, so I can work on this as well. No worries.
So I'll assign it to Alex and Robin. Robin, can you post your GitHub handle in the chat?
Yeah, sure.
And just for the order, we should wait that we have an issue open for Hurl, like Alex opened. Do we have to first fix those ones and then jump to this part of the CI, or do you think, guys, it's interesting to first build it? I don't know, but I think we can order.
I think let's fix them first. The fixes didn't seem like they were that hard. Is that correct?
It was moved to a discussion. Paul said that you had a PR and then it was moved to discussion.
Yeah, I moved it to a discussion just because it was getting a little bit stale. But I think, yeah, definitely you rightfully found quite a few tests that were failing, but it was mainly because we needed to build the Hurl files in the correct way. And the second thing was also problems from Helios that are getting fixed at the moment, because I've discussed with the maintainer and told him the problem that we had, and so we were able to fix a few bugs that they had in their code base. So yeah, now almost all of the endpoints should be functional. I'll push, I think maybe tomorrow I'll push, so tomorrow for me, so in maybe 10 hours, I'll push my fix for the Hurls, but we just need to find because I know we have like maybe 5 PR backlog, so we just need to find like the right execution to make sure that everything goes through well. But yeah, I'll definitely push my fix, and then I'll push just a new organization, just making sure that we have the 47 Hurl files, that they are correctly formatted, that we have the right information, and then we'll test all of them. And when we make sure that the 47 work, now I think we can start building the CI.
Should we create an issue that you just have one Hurl command that'll run all the Hurls in conjunction, so that we don't have to sit there and do each one?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely we could find something like that. I don't know how, because I've never worked a lot on CI side, so, or in Docker. So I don't know if you can build like a script or a command.
Yeah.
Is there anyone good with Bash in here?
Yeah, I can
No,
manage.
no one's good in Bash.
No.
Even when you're good in Bash, you don't feel like you're good in Bash.
It should be fairly easy to do with Bash. You're just going to loop over every file with a wildcard, and then if you have a return code that's more than 0, fail.
Yeah.
Agreed.
No one wants to volunteer. All right, I'll do it. Wait. Okay, so what's the order of then? Because I don't want my PR sitting out there getting commits, messing it up.
I think
What order should we be doing this in?
Yeah, we'll discuss that together. Because I think now I have quite a bit good understanding of like the different endpoints that we support. And indeed, there's like quite a few endpoints that need like data that's in the last 64 blocks, because Helios for now is not configurable, but soon it will be configurable to choose like how far do we index. So for now it's 64 blocks. And so the thing is, for example, if you take a method like get block by hash. So if you pass a hash that's not in the 64 last blocks that have been indexed by Helio, it's going to send you back an error. So we need to order them in the right way, just as you said, so we get all the right data to pass to the next hurls, so the hurls that need the right data that has been indexed.
Yeah, no, I mean, you don't even need it to be done in a certain order. Like basically, like you have a Hurl file that's like a test suite, like it'll generate it and then pass it to another, like No, but then that becomes like less of an example and more like a test file. You see what I'm saying? Because like you could have a file that like does all of that. It doesn't capture it from a previous command. It like says, okay, get this block number, then run this real quick. But then that's not an example for like an end user. That's like
But
an internal like test file. I see what you're saying.
But Alex, if you want to keep the thing splitted, what about, for instance, if we have the call to get the block in Ethereum that is working, and then it's a bit like integrating, but then in all other tests, we also run isolated, preparation of data, just to be sure that every test still as much as isolated as we can. But it will, I think, enforce, we have to fetch some data before to test some endpoints just to be sure we are in sync. But perhaps keeping this isolated as much as possible. It's not like integrating a bit, but we will have a nice unit overview. No? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's really powerful. Like, if we have, like, even if you start a Beerus instance in Docker under CI, and then the first thing you do is like Ethereum and startnet block number, and just we keep both these block numbers, and after we run the CI or block hash or something, and then we the methods that need like information that is valid and that has been indexed, we pass them these, and we go through the 47 hurls. I think this could be like one of the most relevant tests that we could run to make sure that Beerus works, because exactly like Alejandro said, it's exactly what an end user would do. Go like make Hurl requests. So if all the Hurl request passes and sends back like relevant information, I think we're good.
Agreed.
Okay, so what we can do first is what you say, we fix the issues just to be sure we can run manually each Hurl file just to be sure everything works nice, and then we jumped on the CI just to check how we do it with the strobe bash skill.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that sounds nice. Sounds good.
Feel like I should get a badge or something if if I could do it. I need to be able to add it to my LinkedIn profile, right?
A bash
You guys
badge.
have to, yeah, you guys have to endorse me. Alejandro has great bash skills.
Very cool.
It's a bash working with Alejandro. Dad jokes.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have more information about Substrate that you want to share up here, or is it okay?
About Substrate Connect, I had little time on this week, but I tried, and what I'm not very optimistic about is in the light-based part of small dot, which is supposed to be something agnostic of everything that is under. I saw a lot of parachain ID, chain ID, and stuff like this. So my intuition is that I don't think there is a huge value integrating it, but at the same time, I think Abdel his mind is like, oh, I am using Polka.js and it's working out of the box with Madara. It's working out of the box for the Substrate blocks, which is only the cover of what is happening on Madara. So I don't know. I will make more researches because I don't want to say that it's trash and we don't use it like this. But I do want to make more researches just to be sure I don't miss something. If Ben, you have more info from your internal side, perhaps it can help. But at the moment, I think Beerus it's in a good way, and it's something very specific of Starknet. So I asked to Abdel, so the output of using Substrate is perhaps to connect to Polkadot and solve something. And he said, no. For now, it's not the goal. It's not the goal to go there. So if it's not the goal, making our clients very specific for our infrastructure makes more sense to me. So this is my opinion on this now, but I will do definitely more researches on that.
I don't have any like inside information, but just going off of your presentation before and just hearing you say that, which is interesting. They're trying to like sneak it under the hood. It seems like it might make more sense to add it on the node side of Madara, like incorporate the Beerus core, like you were talking about in your presentation, into the node side. So on a NIT, basically it flags itself as a light client and uses the Beerus core to implement that light client. That seems like that might make the most sense.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, so you mean like the Beerus could be the light client of Madara? No, it could be the RPC side of Madara.
Exactly. Basically you can initialize like part of the node template that Substrate puts forth has a few overrides, and you said it at the beginning, like you can have an archive node, a full node, or a light node. Right now we only use one override, and that's just that Madara is going to basically sync. The plan is that it's going to sync from Genesis, and the RPC will basically have a full state try to pull from. But in this case, what would happen is we would have an override, and we would say, okay, you're going to start it with a flag that says -- light. And then that -- light is going to send to the runtime and say, hey, runtime, use the Beerus RPC API instead of the regular JSON RPC API.
But why would you want, because that's a question then, like, because okay, for Robin, maybe Madara, so Beerus is a light client, Madara is a sequencer. So it's a sequencer written in Rust for StarkNet, and the goal is also to integrate Substrate. So Substrate handles everything from consensus and all the logic of nodes connecting. So basically all the blockchain infrastructure.
Okay.
And then, so you have this part, which is Substrate, and then you can add your logic. So which is like StarkNet specific logic on top, which encompasses like the Cairo VM and things like that. And so basically you can build a blockchain very, very quickly with it using it. So you can build like just a node system very, very easily. And that's what Ben is working on very actively with Abdel and other top Gs of the ecosystem.
Okay.
I think I get where you're going with that though, which is that like for the time being, you just wouldn't need that, right? I can just run a sequencer with Madara, or I can run a light client with Beerus. There's really not a huge need to kind of like incorporate, like, do I need the P2P layer and the consensus layer on the light client side? It's kind of an open question. Maybe eventually once the protocol gets more light client friendly, that makes a lot more sense. But right now it's probably like, just run a Beerus RPC server.
No, maybe I didn't. Maybe I'm mistaken and I didn't understand. Because what I understood is that you would run Madara, and that the RPC of Madara would be Beerus. And so Madara wouldn't need to have their own RPC. They could just use Beerus as their RPC. That's what I understood. And so this, my question was like, yeah, because right now Madara is building a RPC from scratch. And so there's a lot of PRs right now and building the RPC from Madara. And so just my question was like, if they could, I thought that what you guys were saying was like, oh, they could use Beerus as their RPC.
The more we're talking through it, the more I realize how little Madara needs Beerus. At the end of the day, the sequencer is going to need to have the state. That's the nature of a sequencer. Whereas, a light client can throw it all away because it's really only caring about one leaf in the Merkle tree. So, at the time being, there's really not much point in adding Beerus to Madara, probably.
Yeah. So because we discussed like a few hours with Pierre like a few days ago, and we went over like Beerus and Madara and the nodes and how the blockchain worked, and so it was really interesting. And so yeah, definitely we had like difficulties finding like matching points between Beerus and Madara.
But I think we have to wait a bit because the decentralization of StarkNet is just building up, and perhaps also internally some things are perhaps not clear today. But the idea is, the sequencer will have its part in the consensus and making blocks. The full nodes will be also for the relaying information, because at the end in StarkNet you will be able to have full nodes that are not sequences that will be able to relay information, and then we will have the light nodes, which like clients like Beerus, and those one have to be the most abundant one in the ecosystem. And at the same time, as we said, like we have the chance to use Starks, to use proofs. So we have a chance to make some synchronization directly from the layer 1, which will help us a lot just to be in sync and just don't have to make from the Genesis block and verifying everything. Because today I try to spin up a Pathfinder node. I have like 200K of blocks of 800, and it's taken a long time. So it's something that I think Beerus will have its own role in the ecosystem, because as we are able to target L1 and L2, we will be able, I think, to make some great stuff just to be sure that the blockchain is synchronized very fast in those nodes.
Strap in for a couple more days of syncing that node. That brings up an interesting point. The thing I'm working on Madara right now is just a spike onto Madara. Madara can basically either and or be the canonical sequencer of Starknet L2 or the sequencer for L3. So the spike I'm working on right now is like, if it was the canonical sequencer of L2, how would we implement the proposed decentralization protocol that Ilya has put forth on the forum? So if you guys are interested in working on something like that, you know, especially from a light client point of view, as we talk about like protocol 5 checkpoints and fast finality, I'll send that into the group as well. That's going to be important to light clients.
Yeah, thank you for the link. Yeah, just checking. Yeah, because at the end, yeah, okay. Okay.
Yeah, very good, very interesting development. Madara is really cool, I think, definitely. And yeah, and I think like Madara is really interesting. But I think that they're not stopping development on the other Rust sequencer, right? Because they were saying on the Basecamp today that they were still working on it. I think.
Yeah, it's still to be decided. Like, Madara needs to come to some stable state, and basically it needs to, Madara's kind of got to prove itself if it's going to end up being the canonical L2 sequencer. And maybe there will be many L2 sequencers, but there's this kind of open question, which is that spike that I'm doing, which is, can we break out of the substrate confines at the consensus layer to implement something like that? Because that consensus layer is really built to operate within its own runtime, within its own block infrastructure. And they have some functionality for doing off-chain workers. But if you think about, this protocol, it's going to need to be asynchronous between L2 and L1. And it's going to need to come to consensus about L2 based on information from smart contracts on L1. So there's a kind of a question of, can we even do it in Substrate? And we might not be able to.
So, but my question is like, are we using Substrate for like specifically their functionalities and the fact that they are bringing in a lot of value, or are we using Substrate because it enables us to spin up fast and ship fast?
Both.
Okay.
I mean, some of it is like it incorporates industry standards like libp2p. So, as we as Starkware come out and we say, are we going to hand roll our entire P2P stack? We might, and that might be an option. But let's say hand rolling a P2P stack takes 6 months, whereas with Substrate, we have it in 5 minutes. There's kind of just the exploration there of like, well, if we can do it in 5 minutes, let's use the P2P stack that a lot of other people use.
Okay.
Yeah, and also you have in Substrate this capacity of how they abstract the runtime with WebAssembly, and you can have on-chain upgrade, etc. So this is a wonderful SDK, and as Ben said, you have time saved and evolutions also.
Okay, very cool. Yeah, and I think we have like maybe more important stuff to build on top of that, like better to focus on Starknet and building like the ecosystem than building like a consensus layer and maybe P2P and things like that have already been built.
At the end of the day, we've grown a lot and we have a lot of talented Rust engineers on board now, but like our core competency is Starks and advanced cryptography and math. Yeah. So, if we can black box some of that other stuff, then, that's a good thing.
Okay, very cool. I've discussed with Damien a little bit. He has a PR ready for documentation. He told me that he was going to send like us information tomorrow, I think, about documentation, that he worked quite a bit on it. And so yeah, just waiting. We're just waiting on that, because I know that he was mainly before assigned the documentation, but also now we have Gitbook that been created. So at one point, I think, especially maybe after at the moment of V1, I think we should definitely start focusing on documentation, because at this moment, we're gonna have some people using it, and we already have a little bit of traction. And so I think we should have, at the moment of V1, a very good documentation so people can start using it.
I think it'd be cool to see like an example use case. I think you even have it in here, but like in real life, you know, like having like verifying some piece of state and, you know, operating and adding a transaction based on that verified state. Just so people can like understand exactly what the benefit of Beerus is.
Yeah, definitely agree on that.
What do you have in mind?
The easy one is to, you know, mock out a wallet. And instead of hitting ETH get balance, or Starknet, in Starknet, it would be Starknet call contract. You would hit Beerus, and Beerus would do the membership proof and say, yes, this piece of storage layout does exist in Starknet, and this value of this address is verified to be this.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. And yeah,
I think there's a test for it. I'll send the test out.
it'd be great.
Speaking of tests, unless you're not done.
Done.
Go ahead.
All right, so when I was updating, I noticed that I mean, as far as like test coverage goes, if I broke something, I probably wouldn't know about it. What are we tabling adding unit tests for everything until later, or what's the plan for that?
No, I'll assign that to myself. So I took out the CodeCov bot during the migration from the REST API to the JSON RPC API, because basically we were spinning up endpoints so fast without any tests that we were just, every single one had a fail on the CI. So I'll add that code coverage bot back in. And then when you submit a PR, it'll tell you whether or not, well, the CI will tell you if you failed any tests, but the CodeCov bot will say, also, we only have 32% code coverage of the code base, and that's bad. So basically, if you submit a PR that decreases the code coverage of the code base, you'll get rejected. You need to have tests.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. I was gonna say, so I have to write everybody's unit tests to catch up to 100%, and then it'll let me merge a PR to change the font style.
Yeah. It'll show up as a green check as long as you haven't decreased it.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So yeah, and then just to go on the Beerus presentation, we discussed it I think last week already. The Beerus presentation is gonna out pretty soon. I just need to refilm it with just the advice from Ben or from Abdel and from other people from the ecosystem. I would just refilm it and in a more professional like space, which is not like a dirty hole of a hotel in New York, and I'll send it to the community so people can start like watching it and just learning a little bit more about Beerus, because I think Beerus is a very cool project, and I think it will put a more light on the work that we have done together. At least I hope. And after Beerus, like you said, Ben, Beerus in real life, as we discussed a little bit at the start. So Beerus V1, we know like Beerus V1, we need full test coverage, the endpoints that work. I think now the CI with the hurls, things like that. And then when we have that, and when we have a good code coverage, we'll be able to push V1 out with a nice documentation and everything. When it starts being more stable and the code base looks more professional, so I hope I will try to make a roadmap, I guess, but I hope in this month we'll be able to push out a V1 of Beerus.
This month you are talking about April.
Sorry,
When you say this month, you are talking about April.
April, yeah.
Okay. Looks a bit short to me, but perhaps it's because I don't have lots of time today with full work, but it may be possible. I don't know.
Yeah, but we shoot for the stars, man.
Yeah. Definitely,
Start net,
definitely.
man. Start net, man. No, but Ben, what do you think?
I think I think since we got all the RPC stuff done, and we say that the only things left to put in it are the Hurl test suite. What else did you want to put in?
Just
The documentation, Hurl testing, Dockerization, just to be sure everybody can spin up. I think those steps are important just to be sure the first version is something that is not like something quickly released, and it's something that is very designed from the ground up and very production ready, So this is why, from my opinion, it's a bit short, but perhaps I don't have the same vision due to my availability.
Well, let's say, I mean, Paul, if you want to write those up, and then when we have our community call the week before the end of the month, let's reevaluate, and see where we're at.
yeah, but we can definitely push out a 0.3.0, and then when we really feel that we have very small steps now, because everything's getting more stable now, we'll all decide on a community call, or we'll make something all together, and we'll decide to push out a V1. But I think definitely, Glenn, it's more conservative to say that that we'll evaluate.
Yeah, don't take me pessimistic. I want to push stagnate and I want to grind, but I just want to be a bit realistic on some points.
I agree. I totally agree with being realistic. I also want to say that once we do get there, and I think we will get there fairly soon, whether it's end of the month or not, I think we should make a push to talk to wallets. I think we should talk to Argent. I think we should talk to Bravos,
Bravos too. Yeah, definitely.
after we have our V1. So yeah, we definitely need it to be stable. We can't be pushing something and then demoing something that doesn't work. So
Yeah.
But I do like your idea, Ben, about mocking a wallet, and I think for now the Carolong is still being used. It means Stocknet RS and Stockly are not ready yet. So perhaps a very good example can be trying to mock this wallet and trying to do a full example of a transaction and stuff like this from our side.
agreed.
Yeah, and the last thing, so yeah, and so the last thing would be like just Beerus in real life. So now it would just be like, where can we see Beerus, and how can we manage to port Beerus to as many types of devices as possible? So it could be like, as we said, a phone, a car, a browser, yada yada. So I don't have a lot of experience in that, but I know that we will need to make Beerus compatible with all of this. So I know that in the Rust space, it needs to be firstly WASMable for the browser, for example, no STD compatible, potentially to go on a Raspberry Pi or things like that. But I would be glad if someone has maybe a little bit more experience on that, on porting things to other types of systems, if someone wants to discuss that.
One thing I'm going to do is add ARM as a target architecture for that CI. So that CI will basically build 3 tarballs, one for Darwin Mac, one for x86, and one for ARM. So we'll be able to deploy on a Mac, Linux machine, and a Raspberry Pi.
And did you see my discussion about Windows? I already built it in Windows, so we can also add Windows at the ready.
Okay, you're gonna have to do that.
Yeah, it's done.
Alright.
It's done. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. You mean to run this? Yeah, definitely. I can take in charge. And yes, about Raspberry Pi, it can be a great stuff. WebAssembly too. And about the phones, it's very easy in Rust. I'm new in Rust, but I'm trying to dive in, and it's not that complicated to generate C bindings. And I worked recently on some application on phones using some external libraries and C. So in the next step, doing on phones can be a huge step for Beerus, just to be sure we can target mobile devices.
Here, do you dev on a Windows machine?
Don't judge me, but today for my full work, I have to, because we are using
Okay.
WPF. But I'm
Okay.
mainly Linux user, but since for 2 years I was on Windows, so I can definitely help you on that and making this just to be sure we can target every system.
Awesome. Awesome.
So what I will do, I will make a poll on the Telegram to see if we banish Glim. Glim being Windows, have him in the community. I'm sorry. It was not
we have to support all platform. We can't discriminate.
no. With the
If you
color,
want to be the most run client in the world for Starnet, you don't have to discriminate, man.
no, man. I know what discrimination is, man. And I'm sorry, but I cannot accept this.
No, don't worry.
No.
Kick this guy out the windows.
I left. See you guys.
Okay. No, very, very cool, guys. It was a great pleasure. If anyone has something to add, I think we went over quite a few things. I think it was really interesting.
Paul, did you have a good first issue? Oh, Robin, if you accept that invite, I'll add you to the CI. I guess that'll be a good first issue.
Okay, great. Yeah, perfect. And actually, if you also need help on the bash scripts and so on, it's something I can help you with pleasure.
Yeah, sure.
I think we will ping you when we are in the CR. Say, Robin, can you help
Yeah.
us on that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Your Telegram handle is the same of the GitHub you gave, Robin.
Yes, I believe I will. I'm not a big Telegram user actually, so I will check right now. Yeah, it's the same.
there's this, and yeah. So tonight and tomorrow we'll slowly clear the backlog. I'll give more information on the Telegram to say, okay, so what are the next steps? And also like what is the execution that we'll go through. Feel free definitely to discuss it. We'll make sure that it's the best possible and slowly start getting through the backlog, creating new issues. I know Ben has already created new issues and stuff. And so slowly getting there. But I think that we've done really great already, and I just think we need to keep pushing because we're getting there. This is more like more how to say, like working in the dark. Right now we're working in the dark. We're making sure that everything passes, that the tests work, etc., etc. I think it's interesting, but for people maybe it's a little bit less exciting than other things, but we're getting there. We're actually getting there, guys. So I'm really proud of you. I know that a lot of people have worked very well. Also, I've discussed with exploration, and I will be totally transparent on the funding that we got for Beerus. People will get paid this month for the work that you contributed, especially because you guys are also the core of our Beerus team. So that's really cool because you're always here and with other people that are not always on the community calls, but that are also a lot on the just on the repo like Damien and other people. So very well done. And yeah, we're getting there slowly. Very interesting stuff is gonna happen. Exactly like we were saying, like talking to wallets, going on the phones, deploying on Raspberry Pis and stuff like that. Very exciting stuff coming. So let's build, guys. It was a pleasure seeing you guys.
I'm gonna blow up Paul's spot real quick. I don't know if you guys know this, but Paul played with Messi and Neymar. Paul is a famous professional soccer player. And he's just
Oh,
been
really?
acting like a rock star dev over here.
Yeah, in my past life, man. In my past life.
So anyway, we're working with a superstar. Yeah, thanks for all your hard work, guys. Yeah, and Telegram's probably the best place to sync after this. So see you online.
Thank you so much, guys. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank
Later.
you all. It was a pleasure meeting you and a lot of interesting topic that I will dig in as soon as tomorrow and looking forward to start working on it.
Awesome, man. Happy to have you.
Ben,
Take care, guys, and welcome.
sorry. Yeah, do we keep the meeting chat and stuff, or does it?
I think I can keep it as metadata. If I can, I'll post it in the Telegram.
Very cool. Okay.
Okay. See you guys.
Awesome.